this case using the rule that mentioned previously. Anyone want to try, please? Anyone want to try? Okay, so if you don't, I will maybe give you a very quick. Right, so in application, what we need to point out here, right? So for offer, right, we can see that D published an Instagram post, right, promising a free lunch with her, who actually tried the look at the e-version of the book, right, and completed the questionnaire before midnight. Right, so of course, if you look at that from a reasonable perspective, she has manifested a willingness to be bound to the offer. Okay, and for acceptance, P start reading, but did not get to the questionnaire at the end, right? So in revocation, so Dinah Agnadi could say that, right? The offerer is entitled to withdraw the offer at any time before acceptance, right? We already studied that before. So she used the same medium, right? When she posted as she posted the Instagram post before. So she used the same medium as the original announcement, right, to communicate that the promotional period was over before P actually completed the performance. Okay, so and the court is unlikely to rule in favor of P, as you know, D did not know that P has commenced the performance, just in case if P say that she has started the performance and that was an implied contract not to revoke or an estoppel. Okay, when we remember when we say in unilateral contract, and P have to understand that incomplete performance was at P's own risk, right? And in addition, the act of performance was, right, beneficial to P because she was able to get the information from the ebook without actually purchasing a copy, right? And she is interested in the subject matter, and she did not suffer any detriment, right? That is the application. And then you can jump to the conclusion. If P is unlikely to succeed in her action for breach of contract, as she did not accept D's offer before it was validly revoked. Okay, so this is a very short example how to apply IREC as doing a legal problem solving. Okay, so if you studied it before, so I'm sure that other lecturer have shared many other thoughtful instructions. Sorry, useful instruction to you. Okay, so now, so I expect that you're gonna have a very organized and structured response in the midterm and in the final. Okay, so don't give us the whole essay without any evidence on any evidence or any backup, any supporting statement. I just say I think, I feel, doesn't work. Okay. So let's move on to the next element, which is consideration. Right? We're gonna study consideration and promissory estoppel. Consideration and promissory estoppel. So what is consideration? What is consideration? We briefly discussed this as mentioning the 4 essentials element for a contract to be valid, right? Agreement, consideration, contractual capacity, and legality. So for consideration, it is usually defined as a value given in return for a promise, okay? The value such as money, right, cash, given in return for a value, for a promise in bilateral contract, or in return for a performance in a unilateral contract, right? And so as long as consideration is present, the courts usually do not interfere with the contract based on the amount of consideration paid. Okay, so often consideration is broken into 2 parts. So the first one is legal value, okay, and the second one is bargained for exchange, as you see on the slide. So what do we mean by legal value or legally sufficient value? In order to be legally sufficient, a consideration must be something of value in the eyes of the law. So it may consist of like either a promise to do something that one has no prior legal duty to do so, or the performance of an action that one is otherwise not obligated to undertake, or the refraining from an action that one has a legal right to undertake. Okay, so or the third one can be called as forbearance, right? So let's look at the example. Let's look at the example to clarify this. So example number 1. In unilateral contract, in a contract for the sale of goods, right? So if a seller promises to ship goods to the buyer, and the buyer promises to pay the seller $1,000, maybe 10 kilograms of durian. I don't know, maybe 100 kilograms of durian, and then B promises to pay $1,000 for those durians. So what do you think? What are the consideration for the contract? Yes, the consideration here is what? Yes, thank you. Right. So the promises, each of these promises actually constitute consideration for the contract. Right. Thanks a lot. So let's look at another one, which is a unilateral contract. Okay. So A say to B, what if you finish when you finish painting my house, right? I will pay you uh a million, a million. Okay, so and B actually painted the house, right? Painted the house. So what is the consideration here? What is the consideration here? What is the consideration in this case? Sorry, let me draw. It's the thing to paint the house. What is the consideration here? What is or what are? 8 million and act, yes, great. So in this case, right, the act of painting the house is the consideration and creates the it creates A's contractual obligation to pay B 8 million Việt Nam đồng. Right. The second element, right, in as discussing consideration is bargain for exchange, and it must provide the basis, right? So for the bargain struck between the contracting party, the item of value must be given or promised by the offerer in return for the offeree's performance, promise of performance. Okay, and this element actually distinguishes contracts from good. Okay, so now let's look at an example. So A is the mother, right? And A told the son that, you know, in consideration that you are not as rich as your sister, I will give you, okay? And then later on, so for example, this is January 1st, A saying that. And then all the ways until now, which is March 3rd already, and A did not give B anything. Can B sue A in order to get that 10K? Again, right? So A say that A is mother, right? B is the son. In consideration of the fact that you are not as rich as your sisters, I will give you 10,000 US dollars, right? So, and then I did not do what I said until 2 months later. So, can B sue A to recover, to get that 10K that was promised by A?
I guess in this case, B doesn't have anything in exchange for A's promise, so B cannot sue A.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Islam. And anyone else? Do you have different opinion from your classmate? All right, so exactly what Jolong said, right? So even though they say there is in the statement, they have the word consideration, right? In the consideration of the fact that, right? The word consideration is used does not mean that consideration has been given, right? Actually, A's promise, right, is not enforceable because look at here, it's only one way, right? Arrow. B does not have to do anything in order to receive this amount of money promised by A. So because B does not need to give A something of legal value in return for the promise, there is no bargain for exchange, right? There is no bargain for exchange in this case. So what they said, simply a motive for giving a son a gift. So to put this simply, to say that, to simplify this. So what I say here is actually just a gift to B, right? It is not enforceable as a contract. This one. So here you can see, right? If you read the Vietnamese contract law, then you are surely you will see the differences between the U.S. law and the Vietnamese law as to regulating the gift promises. Okay, there are some exceptions, right? The completed gift promise is not revocable. For example, if the mother already gives the son 10,000 US dollar, the mother cannot say, hey, by the way, that is just the gift promise between you and I, so it is not enforceable. So give me back the money. Okay, give me back the money. It is not revocable because that gift promise already been completed. Okay. And the gift promise made in writing and witness is also enforceable. It's also enforceable. Next one. Let's look at some contracts or agreements lacking consideration, right? Because sometimes both of one of the parties or all of the parties to an agreement may think that consideration has been exchanged when in fact it has not. So we're going to look at some situations in which the parties' promises or actions do not qualify as contractual consideration, right? So they are illegal consideration, illusory promise, moral obligation, pre-existing duty, and past consideration. Right? Before moving there, I would like to remind you that, right, as I pointed out at the beginning, but maybe you might forget already. So the court, right? For example, if A sell the house to B, right? And of course, B accept to buy the house, right? The house, the price of the contract, right, is a million, is billion Vietnam đồng, right? But the market price is 10 billion Vietnam đồng, okay? The court is not gonna question, right? Why why in this contract the value of the house is only 8 billion, while the market price is 10 billion, because otherwise the judge should just be overloaded with work, right? And cases, frivolous cases, right? So the consideration, what the court is looking at, I mean the common law, not Vietnam, the common law, the judge at the common law system, right? What the court or the judge will look at is just whether there exists consideration, right? They're not gonna question the adequacy, right, or whether a consideration is adequate. Okay, so the court will not question the adequacy of consideration based on solely comparing the value of things exchanged, right? In this case, the money at the house. They're not going to say, oh, I knew that the market price is 10, but the house is only 8. So why there is the disparity between the prices? Okay, so the court not going to do that because under the freedom of the doctrine of freedom of contract, right? The courts leave it up to the parties to decide what something is worth, and the parties are usually free to bargain as they wish. Okay, so however, if there is a large disparity in the amount of the value of the consideration exchange, it might raise a red flag, right? What happened? Right, for example, the house is 8, is 10, but the contract, the price on the contract is only 1 billion, right? So in this case, there might be a problem, right? So usually the inadequate consideration can indicate fraud or duress or undue influence was involved, right? Then the judge might have to question whether the contract is so one-sided that it is unconscionable, okay? Okay, so whether it is so one-sided that it is unconscionable, right? So otherwise, usually the court does not concern the fairness of the bargain. Okay, so this is something extra that I would like to share with you. Let's move on. Okay. Illegal consideration, right? For example, illegal consideration is what is a promise to refrain from doing an illegal act, right? And that promise is not enforceable. For example, you can see an example on the slide, right? So you cannot drink until you are 21 under the US law, right? Or the law prohibits people under 21 from drinking alcohol. So you cannot, and then you cannot come to your mom and say that, well, if you pay me 1,000 US dollar per month, I will not drink alcohol until I'm 21, right? So for example, you are 18 right now. You have just graduated from high school. Even if your mom say yes and you don't drink, right? Later on, your mom doesn't pay you, you cannot sue her, right? Because it is an illegal consideration. The law prohibits your conduct anyway. Okay. Next one, illusory promise. Illusory promise, like the name itself, like the name itself, right? Illusory, something that is not clear, right? Something's vague. So if the terms of the contract express such uncertainty of performance that the promiser or the offerer has not definitely promised to do something, the promise is said to be illusory, right? So it without consideration and therefore unenforceable. And the promise is illusory when it fails to buy the promise. All right, so as you can see in the example, can anyone give me another example for illusory promise? Another example of illusory promises is that, for example, someone say, if the promise continue to be high, right, in the company, everyone of our branch will get 10% bonus at the end of the year, right? If the management agrees. This is very illusory, right? Because it no promises, no promise at all, because we don't know what is defined as high, and we're not sure because if the management agrees based on what. Yes, yes. Who just gave me the very cool example. Sang, can you please give that to the class? All right. So if the man works hard, he will let the daughter married to the guy, right? The guy, right? So the servant, right? This can be considered as an illusory consideration, because what do you mean by heart, right? So for example, you say within one day you can cut like the whole forest of bamboo, that it means you work hard. This one is very blurred. It's not clear. Saying, can you please copy and paste that to everyone instead of to me only? Thank you. Right. So therefore, those kind of so if the rich man, did not fulfill his promise under the common law, then the guy, the servant, cannot sue the man. Okay, so even if he sue the man, yeah, he cannot sue the man. Right? Moral obligation. So this one is actually the example I gave you before. You can use that in consideration that you are poor, you are not as rich as your sisters. I will give you 10K, 10,000K, right? 10,000 US dollar, right? So it's just because of the moral obligation or honors, and it lacks consideration. Right? Pre-existing duty. It's sorry, it's a promise to do something already under the obligation to do so, right? So for example, you lost a car and the police officer of your ward come to see you and say, if you give me 1,000 US dollar, I will try to find a car for you. Right? And you say, yeah, sure, go ahead, please do that. I will give you the money when the car is found, right? And the police officer came back later and say, hey, I found your car is at this place, that place, and can I get my money, right? And then you can, even if you don't give the guy 1,000 US dollar as promised, under the US law, the guy cannot sue him. The police officer cannot sue him, because as a police officer, he has a duty to use the best efforts to recover stolen property. If existing, by the time you and him, you offer 1,000 US dollar to the police officer, right? So there's no new consideration has been given to you, right? In exchange for your 1,000 US dollar. Therefore, the promise between you and him, between you and the police officer, is not enforceable. As you just send it to me only. Maybe choose to send to everyone. Say so. Right. Next one. However, they are pre-existing duty. They are pre-existing duty, right? So when you are carrying out your current duty, if there are some unforeseen difficulties, okay, so there is an exception of the pre-existing duty scenario. Okay. Because at this time, the other party has to do something extra in order to fulfill their duty. Okay, so the contract can be modified and enforced. Okay, without new consideration being given. Right, and past consideration. This one, let's look at this example. Right, A say to the kid, B, I will give you a new laptop, right? Because you did a very good job for the previous semester. Sem 1 of the 2021-2022 year. Okay, school year. So you got a very good result. I'm very happy. So that's why I give you this one, a new laptop. This is the it is the past consideration because A, right, promised to pay additional compensation for the work done in the past. B already completed semester 2, right? It is now Sem 2. As it has completed semester 1, this is Sem 2 already, right? So therefore, right, this is only one-way ticket, as you can see, right? B did not have to do anything, right? For A, if you draw this kind of chart, right, you're gonna see the relationship between the parties. Okay, so B did not have to do anything in order to get the laptop for A because what B did was in the past already, right? So then this one is considered as past consideration and do not support a new contract. Okay, so therefore it is. But if A say that, right? If A say, my son, if you got a GPA 8.0 out of 10, right? This semester, I will give you a laptop. Then that's a different story, right? It means that in order to get the laptop, B needs to work hard in order to have high grades and maintain the GPA more than 8.0 the second semester of 2021 and 2022. Okay, so if we just twist it a little bit, then it can be a different story, right? Thanks, Sam. Okay, so please pay attention. Please read the scenario, the problem very, very clearly as before you actually analyze it. Right. So this is the summary of cases of situations where in which the parties' promises or actions do not qualify as contractual consideration. Okay. So if you don't have any question, let's look at maybe an example too. So now let's look at an example. Some examples, right? To illustrate that. So I have a question. All right. So you have a slide. You can look at a slide yourself. So I'm going to use this so I can actually. And yeah, this is the case that I talked about. You can have a look at that if you want to. Okay, this is the case regarding the casino. Okay, so if you are interested in, you can look at that. Real case, okay? So let's look at an example. A is the company, okay? Company A is a construction company, right? And begins to construct on a five-story house, okay? Five-story house. And after 3 months, okay, A would like to ask for, okay, A asked for extra 75 million. Okay. If the extra 75 is not paid, then A will stop working. A will stop working. And the owner of the B is the owner. Okay. B really needs the house, right? And cannot find anyone else to complete the construction. So agrees to pay extra. He agrees to pay. Say, okay. 75 million. So the question is this agreement enforceable? This one. The question is, right? Question A. Number one. Is number one enforceable? Okay. Scenario number two. While doing the construction, A had encountered, right, a rock formation. There's some very, very big rock here. No one knew that it existed before. So A ask for extra 80 million, okay, to take the rock away and to do anything related to the rock thing to continue the construction. So the question is, in scenario 2, right, is it enforceable? See you. All right, do you get that? This is a very peaceful area, right? A very flat area. No one knew that there was a rock. No one can imagine that there was a big rock underneath of the building in the land that they need to deal with. They need to evacuate it. They need to take that away, right? So there are two scenarios, right? They completely not related to each other. Okay? Scenario 1, right? After 3 months, I just say I knew that we really need the house. So I say, if you don't give me extra 75 million, I'm gonna stop working, right? So be okay. So the question is number 1, right? The agreement between A and B is enforceable. Number 2, right? Why A was doing all the kind of thing related to the construction. A found a huge rock, right? And A asked B for an extra 80 million, right? And be okay, right? Be okay with that. So the question is this the agreement number 2, right? In scenario number 2 between A and B is enforceable. Okay. So maybe you can spend 7 minutes, maybe 5 minutes to think about this. Is very simple, guys. Don't think too much, right? And then I will discuss with you guys together, right? in the second scenario. Okay, I receive one response. Okay, so let's go over one by one. Go over the example. Okay. So for number one, do you think A, right? If B does not pay A 75 million after even though B say that to A, can A sue B to get that money? Can A sue B to recover the money after completing the construction? What do you guys think? This is very simple, guys. So what I have just immediately discussed, it's not something like rocket science or like you don't need to do extra and research or anything. Right, so in this case, okay, in this case, it is actually fallen into the category of pre-existing duty, right? Because A and B already have a contract here, right? There's a contract between A and B here. A already agreed on the compensation, the money, the consideration that B will pay in order for A to do this 5-story building. Okay, so A asked for extra 75 million for nothing, right? He has a duty already, an existing duty that is a consideration of another contract, right? So B have to pay 75 million for nothing received from A, right? So in this case, it is the agreement is number one, right? No, the agreement is unenforceable because it is not supported by legally sufficient consideration, right? A already had a pre-existing contractual duty to complete the building. If this is an exam, you just need to give me 2 answers like that. You get maximum score, okay? Again, the agreement is not enforceable because it is not supported by legally sufficient consideration. Right? So A already had a pre-existing contractual duty to complete this 5-story building. Okay. In number two, however, right? In number two, however, this is a yes. Why? This is actually the exceptions in pre-existing duty that I mentioned before, right? So it should be fair to do so. If this area, as I mentioned before, no one expects, sorry, no one expects that there is a large rock, right, in this area, right? So therefore, this enforcement is enforceable if we decide not to pay A later on after the construction finished. Okay. However, right, because this is unforeseen difficulties, right? No one knew that. No one knew of its existence, right? And it cannot be predicted, right? So the 80 million Vietnam dong is needed to remove the rock and to do any extra necessary thing to ensure that the building, the house is built, can be built on that area. Okay. However, if the rock formation are common in this area, right, the court may determine that the contractor A should have known of the risk. So in this situation, the court again will go back to number one to apply pre-existing duty rule and prevent A from obtaining the extra 80 million. Is it clear, guys? Okay. Any question for this part? Right. So this example was two scenarios given to illustrate the pre-existing duty and its exception, which is the unforeseen difficulties. Okay. So if this is this could something similar like this is going to be in midterm or your final exam, right? And you just need to answer like what I did in class, right? Very brief, straightforward, and with the principles or rules supported, right? You don't need to write too long. Right? Any other questions for today's class or for the example? Otherwise, let's stop here for now, right? So we completed. Let's see, let me write that. We completed situations lacking consideration. Right. So for today, class is going to be Châu Long and Nga. Oh, again, is it again? Right. So Châu Long and Nga will get the bonus points. Okay. Phụng had some comments and answer too, but compared to Châu Long and Nga, they have much more. Okay. So again, if you read the textbook, I'm sure that you will not have any problems answering that question. Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice weekend, and I'll see you guys again on Tuesday. Okay. Bye, guys.